The new movie Priscilla follows the life of Elvis Presley's wife as she first meets and falls in love with the singer. And it is once again sparking the conversation about how old they were when they initially met. If you don't know, Elvis was 24 years old and Priscilla was only 14. We have the president and CEO of Talk, the new sex ed, Samantha Gerard, here with this really important discussion. And it's one that I think is coming up more so now, but it's good that we're having this discussion about what exactly grooming is, because some people may think of the literal sense of the term.
Completely and totally. So grooming is any time someone in a position of power, in this case someone who is a celebrity and also of a particular age, is basically showing special attention, giving special gifts, anything along the lines of getting that person to kind of lower their guard, and it makes it easier to actually be abusive towards them and be a predator towards them.
Yeah.
And it makes them less likely to tell.
Yeah. And it's subtle too, and it starts really kind of slowly, right? Talk about how it gets kind of started.
Sure, it can come in a variety of different ways, and you know, we can use Elvis as the example. I worry more about your kids than I worry about something that happened 50 years ago, but in terms of, it can start in any variety of ways. There are predators everywhere there are children. So in terms of that, the things that we can do to prepare parents and also to prepare kids in the event that they're ever on the receiving end of this kind of attention from an unhealthy adult.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a key message that parents need to make sure their kids are aware of. If a grown-up is paying romantic or sexual attention to you, it is a problem with the grown-up. It is not a problem with you, and the right thing to do is always to tell.
So, okay, that's a tough conversation, but how does that conversation start, and at what age should it be starting?
So good touch, bad touch can start way earlier. So anytime an adult is making a child feel uncomfortable, you can start having those conversations from actually quite an early age, just to help them understand that your job as a parent is to help them feel comfortable and help them feel safe. And if there's ever a grown-up in their atmosphere for whatever reason that's making them feel uncomfortable, that you want them to come and talk to you about it. So that way you can help alleviate that, whatever that may look like.
And it's important to do that sooner rather than later, because when the grooming happens, it's almost like a brainwashing situation. So they need to be able to recognize that early on, long before it happens.
Completely and totally. And not only that, I like to remind parents, people think a lot of times stranger danger is the things that a lot of my students are prepared for. A lot of times we forget to tell kids about the situation that they're more likely to be abused in, which is by someone who's known to them. And that is both more uncomfortable for parents to contemplate and think about and talk about, as well as for kids in terms of what they would do. Arguably for children, it can add a layer of discomfort in coming forward. Yeah.
Now, what we're talking about, of course, Elvis and Priscilla, that was 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Why do you think at that point it was kind of like pushed under the rug? It wasn't talked about as much, it seems like.
I think the same thing is continuing to happen culturally. We see examples of this as early as Charlie Chaplin, all the way back as far as you can imagine into the present day. And it seems to be, until societally we decide it is not acceptable for adults to have sexual relationships with children, and people come out strong for that, I don't know that it's going to change. So hopefully it makes people think, hopefully it sparks some outrage, and people do some thinking about what is and isn't appropriate.
And I was just going to say, you know, sparking that outrage, but how do we advocate to make sure that this is a conversation that is more so in the forefront and that people know this is extremely unacceptable behavior and don't even start it?
Well, it's interesting, and I think the movie is kind of just doing that.
Yeah.
Is kind of picking up the threads for that kind of in the look back. It was funny, I asked both my parents and a couple of other people of that generation, and I said, how was this perceived at the time?
Yes.
How did people think about this? And they were like, they were the it couple.
Yeah.
They were like the Taylor and the whatever his
Travis
name is.
Kelce.
There you go, thank you, sorry. Right?
Yes.
So, but they were the it couple of the time, and so that was the kind of attention that they got. And so I think as these cases continue to come to the forefront, we can continue to address them to say, you know, these things are inappropriate. And when you see reactions to things like Michael Jackson, when you see things like in reaction to R. Kelly and the way that he behaved, people seem to be coming out more strongly, more quickly when kids are on the receiving end of this, especially when there's a conviction, obviously.
Yeah, and you know, it's hard to hear, it's hard to talk about, but it is a good thing, you know, that it is being talked about, so it can be recognized and more easily recognized.
And I tell my kids all of the time, sometimes kids worry, is this happening more frequently? And the answer to that is no. The data has actually been flat for a really long time. And arguably, we're actually in a better position now, because if you don't know you have a problem and you can't talk about these kinds of things, you can't address it. But I feel like lately it's much more at the forefront, and people are in the public consciousness more aware that these things go on and that it's okay to talk about it.
And you know, we were talking about grooming kind of being a brainwashing, and Priscilla even said that she never remarried because no one would measure up to Elvis. And that just really kind of shows you what this can do to someone's mind and how manipulative it really
It's like
is.
Stockholm syndrome. You're associating with your, you can't even imagine your life without it.
Really interesting stuff. A really important conversation. Samantha, thank you so much for being here with us and for sharing this with our viewers. Now, if you are interested in learning more about the resources offered through Talk the New Sex Ed, you can head to our website, k2k.com/talkpittsburgh for more information. All right, coming up next on the show, one local man is changing the game when it comes to education. We're exploring the work that landed him Champion of the Year. Stay with us.